Just one more follow-up.
Go ahead.
That schedule for building the facility seems pretty aggressive, and I'm sure that it was probably arrived at from a political standpoint. Would you care to comment on the possibility of compromising the technology of the facility because of political requirements?
You're talking about in order to meet the deadline?
Correct.
All right, gentlemen.
I think that one of the first discussions that the Commission had, Layla, was that we would not cut any corners with this deadline. We believe that we can make the deadline, but we have let everyone understand, the operators who are negotiating for this contract, all of our consultants, and state agencies who will have to issue the permits, that we're not going to cut any corners, but we're going to do it on the schedule if we can.
All right, Darryl.
Well, if I could add something to that question, I think that if the caller was interested, all of the proposals that have been made by those companies are all public record, and he could come in and look through these volumes, and literally volumes after volumes of the technical proposals and presentations that they are making in order to manage this facility. And they are several binders, 3 and 4 inches thick, so the detail is incredible, and I don't think there's been any shortcut at all in this process.
All right, thank you for your interest this evening. We appreciate your call.
Thank you.
We have another call. This one is from Charlotte. Charlotte, go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm interested in what the life expectancy of a program like this is considered to be. I mean, how long will it take before it's in essence full?
All right, how long do you expect the facility to last once it's been created? Trenton?
I may need some help on this. There are 3 facilities. One is a landfill for the residue from the incinerator. We can calculate the life expectancy of that. The incinerator, I'm not so sure. 20 years comes to mind with incinerators, but I may need some help from one of my 2 colleagues here on that answer.
Generally, that's exactly what we have projected, about a 20-year life for the incinerator, and we often speak of that as depreciated life of the facility, of the incinerator itself, about 20 years.
The term that we're negotiating with the 3 potential operators is a 20-year term, and we're using that as the potential life for this facility.
And may I ask what happens after that? 20 years is over, and what happens to the waste at that time? And does the company that is managing it abandon it at that point, or where do you go from there?
All right, Darryl, what happens when it's full?
Well, I think that first of all, there would have to be a determination by the governor if there is a continued need for this facility. If he continues to authorize the need for this facility, I think we would then make a decision as to whether that facility is most appropriate for continued management of North Carolina's needs, and if it was, that facility would be continued. If for some reason there was new technology or new treatment methods available and we needed another type of facility, that facility would be required to be closed, clean closed, so there's nothing left of that facility, and then we would go from there into a new facility if we chose new technology.
You mean we can go through all this again in 20 years?
If we have to, if there's a continued need.
All right, did we answer your question fully?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. Our next call is also from Charlotte. Charlotte, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to ask what if any specific technical direction has been given towards the land ban restrictions that EPA is currently working on, also known as the third list under RCRA.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm hearing you. We're having a little trouble with this. You're talking about a land ban from the EPA?
Yes, there's some waste which have been identified that after certain dates they are banned from land disposal, and I wondered if some of those wastes have been considered at this point in the process.
All right, thank you for elaborating on that, gentlemen.
Yeah, as our caller has mentioned, EPA has published 3 land bans. They came in, and he called it the third. He's correct. The first third, second third, and third. What EPA was attempting to do was to keep those hazardous waste out of landfills, which are likely to contaminate groundwater and surface water. And the landfill that we are envisioning for this facility that we are planning to construct will have to abide by all of those bans and by all those regulations as well.
All right. Go ahead, Darryl.
Well, if I could add some more to that, what we find is that those land bans, as this caller is describing, force things out of the landfill, as Dr. Turner has just said, toward other treatment methods like the incinerator, and we had to plan as part of our capacity needs in the future for our incinerator to include those materials that would no longer be allowed to be put in the ground.
All right, does that respond to your question, sir?
Yes, thank you. I have another one. Has been any been given to mixed waste management at any of these facilities?
All right, mixed waste management.
Mixed waste management, I assume you mean the a mix of hazardous chemical waste and low-level radioactive waste.
That's correct.
Correct. No mixed waste will be accepted at this facility. This facility will be only for hazardous chemical waste, no low-level radioactive waste.
Okay, and as a final follow-up, thank you. How about medical waste? Will you be dealing with any of that?
We will not be dealing with any medical waste at all. None.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your call. Gentlemen, our next call is from Apex. Apex, go ahead.
Yes, is this a multi-state compact? Will we be getting waste shipped in from other states?
Panel, is it a multi-state compact?
Darrell, maybe you'd like to.
The regional agreement that has been signed by the governor and approved by the General Assembly is that this facility will participate in a 5-state regional agreement to manage waste within those 5 states and to have shared access among the facilities within that 5 states. As we said earlier in the program, this allows each state not to have to build one of everything, but to use other states' capacity and then build what is necessary to fill the gaps. And this is North Carolina's contribution to this process. As you can see from the slide up on your screen now, those 5 states in that regional agreement are Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina, and North Carolina. And considerable negotiations went back and forth between and among those 5 states to resolve what was needed, and as a result, we now have North Carolina's facility, or we're trying to cite North Carolina's facility.
Did we answer your question? It sounded to me like you were getting towards something else.
Yes, I have a follow-up. Which state will host this after North Carolina's tenure? Is North Carolina's tenure 20 years? If so, who will host it after that?
All right, Darrell?
I think, caller, you may be confused with the low-level Southeastern Compact arrangement in which there are 8 states among that compact agreement, and they have decided that North Carolina will first host a facility, and then 20 years later it will go on to another state's responsibility. That is not a part of the agreement we're talking about for hazardous waste. There are 2 separate agreements.
All right. Did we answer your question, sir?
So will it move on to another state though after North Carolina?
It is envisioned that North Carolina will have a continuing obligation and that we will have a facility always to manage waste as long as there is some capacity needs here, as well as we would be able to always share the access to those other states' facilities so that we would not have to build a large multi-component facility here in our state.
All right. Thank you for calling with your question.
Okay, thank you.
We have another call. This one is from Ashboro. Ashboro, go ahead, please.
Yes, I got a question. Who will be responsible for handling on and off-site emergencies?
On and off-site emergencies?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, panel?
There will
Mal?
be a trained emergency response team on the site. The members of that team will come from the operator who will be operating the site. This is not only required by federal statute and this is required by federal statute and state regulation. In addition to that, as is true with all of these hazardous wastes, or as we call them, RCRA facilities, one of the things that has been very useful in other areas of the country is that you sign or that you negotiate agreements with emergency response personnel in the surrounding communities. That if the facility has a problem, they will respond. If they have a problem in their communities, our team would respond from the facility.
All right.
Okay, so it's up to the county in which it will be put in. Who will pay for the training and the extra equipment? Because most counties are covered 99% by volunteers, and their budget, you just can't afford equipment to handle hazmat incidents.
All right. Training and equipping of the outlying communities.
There will be considerable negotiations between the operator and the community which will be hosting the facilities. These are issues that will be discussed and can be finalized during those periods of that period of negotiation.
Okay.
As a part of those negotiations, each of the county where this facility is located has the right to charge a privilege license to cover any of those costs that are involved in this process. So there is, in a sense, a tax that the local community could levy on the facility to pay for those responsibilities that would be incurred by the county.
And others, I would guess.
Yes, as well as the negotiations that has been referred to already.
All right, did we answer your question, sir?
Yes, I got one more question.
All right, go ahead.
This be trucked in, or will it be in by road car, railroad, or what?
The waste coming to the facility, how does it get here?
We now envision that all of the waste will come by truck, that there will be little or no transport by rail.
Okay. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
All right, our next call is from Greensboro. Greensboro, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I understand that we've narrowed down, or soon we'll have an announcement as to the fact that we've narrowed down the site to two to choose from.
All right.
There's also been reference made that proposals have been submitted by several different companies for the operations of the facility.
Yes.
To what degree has the Commission considered those hazardous waste management companies that may be resident within North Carolina for participation in the operations of this facility?
All right, how did you seek out potential operators?
The fact of the matter is that there are no hazardous waste companies in North Carolina that could do a project of this size or that were interested in bidding on the project. Four companies did bid on our proposal to design, construct, and operate the facility. We have eliminated one of those companies. There are 3 companies remaining, and there have been intensive negotiations over the last 2 weeks with all 3 of these companies, and this is our way of trying to choose the very best company to do this job.
All right.
Layla, in addition to that, when we originally opened up the bid for the opportunity to participate in this process, we did contact and identify North Carolina companies, and in that process, 2 of them came to the pre-bid meeting and came back and reviewed the process and chose not to participate. I'm not sure what their reasons were, but they opted not to be a part of the process.
All right, so your answer is that North Carolina companies were invited and are not in the process at this point.
That's right.
All right, thank you for joining us this evening. We have another call. This one is from Charlotte. Charlotte, go ahead, please.
Yes, I'd like to know how the state of North Carolina and the Piedmont area in general stands to profit economically from a facility like this, and what incentives do we have to have this facility here?
All right, panel. Daryl, you want to try that?
Well, I think that there's been a lot of discussions about how a facility impacts the community. There has been discussions about whether there has been a depreciation or appreciation of property values. I think there is good reason to believe that the Piedmont portion of the state enjoys most of the benefits in terms of jobs that generates the waste already. And so for many of those citizens of our state who are in those non-urban areas, they think that the Piedmont already enjoys many of those benefits from the process.
All right, go ahead, please.
Well, I know personally, if this thing would go through, I would probably opt to move. And I think that there would be a lot of young families who support the Piedmont area, and I understand the average age is 31 with 2 children, and I think that a lot of families would feel the same way I do, that I don't know if you could name a company that is in the business of managing this hazardous waste that has 100% record for having no accident. I would appreciate knowing who they are.
All right, you're saying that your opposition is based on the fact that the operators don't have a completely clean record. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yes.
And that would be what would motivate you to move out of the area?
Yes, because it would only take one good mistake.
All right. Panel, would you like to respond to this?
One way I would respond to it is most of the spills that occur when materials are hazardous but are not hazardous waste. Gasoline, petroleum products. I live in a community in which thousands of tons of sulfuric acid and other acids are transported through the community. It's not considered hazardous waste, it's a hazardous material. And there have been accidents and spills involving rail transportation. So I guess my response would be that I have no more concern about this facility than the transportation of the hazardous waste to the facility than I would the concern about the transportation of hazardous materials on our highways and byways daily, and rail and air and so forth.
Okay. All right. We may not have answered your question completely, but we appreciate your joining us.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Professor Turner, we'll talk about the building schedule for the facility. As we've discussed a bit this evening, the regional agreement which North Carolina has joined requires specific deadlines for each step in establishing the facility. Is it going to be a tight squeeze for the commission to get the site selected, the permitting approved, and finally the facility operational by the December 1991 deadline that you alluded to? Before you answer, let me remind those of you at home that you're welcome to join us in this discussion. Our number is area code 919-733-6341. You can call us collect or direct. And now, Professor Turner, what about that December 1991 deadline?
It is a tight squeeze. But I think we've gone too long in North Carolina generating hazardous waste, shipping our hazardous waste to other states, and not contemplating a facility to manage our own waste. So I think we've gone too long in this respect, and I think it's time we got on with the job. The Commission has committed itself to meeting this timetable, and up until the present time, I think we were on that timetable. And I think a lot of this has to do with the Commission members themselves. They've been willing to work long and hard and to study the issues and to provide information and opinions about the process. So certainly the Commission members and the Commission itself has been useful in that respect. Second, we have had agreement from the government of North Carolina, the state government, and from all the agencies of the state that they will attempt to help us in speeding up the permit process so that we can make these deadlines. And let me emphasize, I have mentioned this before tonight, we want to make the deadline if we possibly can. We think we've gone too long without a adequate facility for treating hazardous waste in North Carolina. But one thing, we're not going to take any shortcuts, and I want to re-emphasize that. We will do it on the schedule if we possibly can, but no shortcuts. The facility itself, if our viewers will look at their screen, the facility itself will be a 15,000 ton per year solvent distillation and recovery system, a 10,000 ton per year ash landfill. This is to dispose of the ash from the incinerator, and a 50,000 ton per year rotary kiln incinerator to incinerate the hazardous waste. In addition to the work of the Commission and the state agencies' willingness to speed up the permit process, we also have a commitment from each of the operators that we are negotiating with that they can meet the schedule, and this was one of the conditions that we placed on any operator who wanted to be considered, that they too will meet our time scale and our timeline, and they have agreed to do this. All three of the operators that we're currently considering have agreed to do this.
Let's talk about that slide just a minute. What was it that we were looking at? If we could have that slide again. Selecting a facility operator, what all was involved in that?
Well, we had to have, first of all, a compliance review in order to make an application for a permit by a company